Good morning and welcome to this video. My dear students, today we have the first chapter of your third term syllabus. Okay, and in your textbook is chapter 9 and the topic is light. And in this chapter we are going to learn on two objectives. The first is learn about various sources of light. And the second objective is learn the properties of light. So let us first learn about the various sources of light. Now when we talk about the sources of light, it is divided into different groups. That is the natural sources, and the other is the artificial sources of light. Okay, now going back to the natural sources of light, we can name some of the examples. That is, the first is the sun, and the sun is one of the major sources of light. With the help of sunlight, the plants in and around us produce their own food, and to which we also depend on. Okay, then comes the moon and stars. So these three are the examples of natural sources of light. Now artificial sources of light. So we can name some of the examples like torches, bulbs, candles, etc. Okay, so the torches, you can see the torch in my hand. Okay, so we use this torch during the night time when there is no light. So with the help of this torch we can walk even in the dark. Okay, and bulbs and the candles, we use it in our homes. So these are some of the artificial sources of light. Now moving on to the next point, let us learn what is luminous and non-luminous object. Okay, luminous object. Now what is luminous objects? Luminous objects are those objects that makes their own light. Okay, one example can be given, that is fireflies. Okay, and the other is the non-luminous object. Non-luminous objects are the objects that does not make or have their own light. Few examples can be mentioned as books, pencils, etc. So I hope you understood what is luminous and non-luminous object. So let us move on to the next point. I request all the students to kindly follow your books. Please see page number 107. Here we have how do we see things around us. Okay, how do we see things around us? So when the light falls on any objects, we can see it. Okay, and the light travels in a straight line, and when the light falls on the object, it bounces from the object and reaches to our eyes, and this is how we can see the things. Okay, and if anything comes in between the light, what happens? If anything comes, say for example this is a light, and if after putting on the light, if I put something in front of the light is unable to pass. Okay, it blocks the light. So the objects that blocks the light is called an opaque. Okay, opaque. What is opaque? It means the objects that do not allow light to pass through is called opaque. One example can be given as toys or maybe books. Okay, so this can be considered as the example of an opaque. Now let us also know that the objects, there are some objects which doesn't allow the light to pass completely, so that is called translucent. For example, sunglass, wallpaper and frosted glass. Okay, translucent. Allow some light to pass through. Okay, I repeat, translucent means the objects, there are some of the objects that allow some light to pass through it, and the other is transparent. It means the objects that allow the light to pass completely is called transparent. So two examples can be given as the glasses. These allow the light to pass completely. Okay, completely is called transparent. Okay, an example, as I have mentioned, glass and water. So I hope you understood this. Now we have the properties of light. So there are 5 properties. So let us learn them one by one. The first is light travels in a straight line. Okay, you see I have a torch with me. So when I put on the light, you can see light travels in a straight line. See, but when I put the objects here, what happens? The light is then blocked and struck, and this blocking of light by an object is called an opaque, as I have mentioned earlier. And this opaque, it formed a shadow behind. You can see a shadow behind the screen. Okay, so the second is light travels in many directions from its sources. The third is light can bounce back, and light can pass from one medium to another. And the last is light can split into 7 colors. So there are 7 colors with which there are 7 colors. I mean, light can split into 7 colors. How? So you can see it in the book, page number 9. So let us follow the book. Here it is mentioned that a prism is a device having a triangular shape and made of glass. As the visible or the light or the white light is allowed to pass through the triangular prism, it is separated into its 7 colors. Okay, so when the light is allowed to pass through a triangular shaped prism made of glass, what happens is the light is separated into 7 colors. So there are some of the colors mentioned here. Those are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet. So these are the 7 colors that splits. Okay, So these are the properties of light. Now moving on to the next point, that is shadow. As I have mentioned that the objects or the object, that is when it is put in the path of the light, it forms a shadow. Okay. Now the shadow has some of the following features. Shadow has some of the following features. Number one features is it is always formed on a surface or a screen behind the object. It is always formed on the surface or a screen behind the object. Okay, this is one of the features. Number two features can be mentioned as a shadow from a strong sources of light is sharp. A shadow from a strong source of light is sharp, whereas shadows from a weak sources are blurred. Okay, and the last feature is it can be mentioned as it does not have fixed size. It does not have a fixed size. Okay, so I repeat, it is always formed on the surface or a screen behind the object. Number two, a shadow from a strong sources of light is sharp, whereas shadow from a weak sources are blurred. And the last is it does not have a fixed size. So in the morning and evening the shadow is long, and in the midday the shadow is short. Okay, so my dear students, I hope all of you have understood this chapter. So in this chapter we have learned the two objectives which I have already mentioned, that is learn about the sources of light, and the second objectives that we have learned is the properties of light. So once again, thank you and have a nice day.